All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining me today. We got some cab work to do. We got a lot of work to do on that cab. Believe it or not, I got more tips and tricks and advice for taking that cab apart than I do for taking that transmission apart. The other evening, I thought we were having a nice evening. The wife's reading the paper, and old Roger passed away, and you're like, oh, yeah, and I was kind of like, gosh, I wonder at their age, does his widow wife, does she start dating? What do? Do you get married again? Or, you just kind of that in thoughts. And I kind of looked at her and I'm like, well, what do you do? I said, if something happened to me, today, 20 years from now, I said, do you get married again? And she's like, you know what? I really like Kristen down the road. I would probably just move in with her and just have a good time. And she said, well, how about you? And I said, I probably wouldn't get married again. I really like Kristen down the road. If anything happened to you, I'm moving in down there and I'm having a good time. And I don't understand why the fight, where this anger come from. And I tried to point out first of all, it seemed like the more I yelled, just calm down, it got weirder. And then I tried to explain the hypocrisy of how come it's okay for her to like Christian and want to move in down there, but it's weird for me. It's not appropriate. But the good news is, as it got closer to the end of that debate, she did come to me on her hands and knees. And what'd she say, you ask? She looked at me right in the face, right in the eyes, and she says, come out from underneath that table, you coward. And so, I'm sorry, it's just cheesy, but every people get it. Looking at that cab, there's actually a lot going on here. So your cab roof, so you can see the 3 screws. You got each bracket is a screw holder there, and then you've got your 2 in the middle come from the top. Them are 15/16, and these either a flat or Phillips. You take a look at them. This cab roof's coming apart. It's been silicone back together a few times. The hinges, so you take the bolts out here, you take these 3 screws out, and it's supposed to hinge up, and then you can take this rod and hook the front, and it stays hinged up. The problem is these hinges get rusted up because they haven't moved in 20 years. So if you grab the front and try lifting up, be kind of careful so you don't crack the roof. You might have to come over here and kind of pry up and while somebody's pushing up there a little bit, you come back here and try and lift on the roof a little bit. And they're kind of a bugger. You might have to get a spray can of some blaster, and there's some PB80 blaster and rust buster, and let them soak for a few days. But eventually you get the roof up. And then there's that steel tray that sits on top, and you just take all these bolts out, and that steel tray, it's that dusty one right down there. That lifts off. Now you can see where your return filter goes. That's the screen. There's supposed to be foam right there. Here's your air filter that comes down, and here's your evaporator and your heater core, and then your blower fans. So the problem we run into many times is these fittings. I'll get that tar off of there, and these fittings have corroded. And with any luck, I can show you a tip or trick how to save $200 some by trying your best to save the evaporator. Nice thing on these early ones, the heater core is separate from your evaporator, so it's a little less expensive to change out. But that's your expansion valve right here, and that that's your plumbing there. Then the lines come down this corner, and I take the rear window out because we got a headliner coming in. You can see these 3 screws. On this side window, I'm going to take these top screws out and then open the window, leave the hinges attached. Open that window, leave it sit on the fender, and that will give access to the 3 screws behind that window insulation there. Now, if you have a 50 or 55 series, you almost need God resting his hand on your shoulder to give you some divine intervention of getting that insulation away to get to them screws. There's been a couple of them tractors that foam is glued on there so good, it's like, holy cow. But I'll show you them screws behind there. So let's get to the next step, and I'll come back to you. Well, that one didn't come out too bad. That's the only damage I caused. I've had a few of these that are bonded so hard with some silicone and glue over the years that this whole side is just wrinkled. You just destroy the thing trying to get it off of there. This one had been in there so long that this foam kind of melted itself all the way down. Just melted itself to the tin. And so it put up a heck of a fight, but that went pretty good. So the window can stay there. It's safe. Shouldn't get broke. And these top screws, they shouldn't be that tight. Here's the screws when we're doing the headliner. We're going to take these 3 loose, drop this little tin tray. Since this window is out, we'll do the same on this side. 3 screws, just loosen them a little bit, leave the screw in the cab, drop the tray, put the headliner up, and then while I'm holding the headliner up, Karen and Dad can just come in the back here and hold it up and slide this tray in, tighten them screws up, and then come over to this side. And so the 3 of us makes a headliner like that. By yourself, it's tricky, but still very manageable. But if you have help, take the help. So here's our lines. When replacing these lines, I literally just take the grinder and just nip them apart. I am not spending customer dollars trying to take lines apart. I'll just take the grinder and just cut, drop that out. Same down there, and yep. Well, here's our couplers underneath the cab, and they're the quick couplers. So if the system is charged and you had to do a repair work, you can unscrew this half, and they're supposed to stay coupled up. The small side is 1 3/16 or 30 millimeter. The large side is 1 5/8, and they're just a couple thin jam nuts on this side. Whenever you're separating them, always use a wrench so you're not turning on the line. Then they come right out. The other one is still hooked to the line. Then they come out, and we'll go through rebuilding these and save you another couple $100 right here. All right, so you got your quick couplers here, and it's a 10-minute overhaul that can actually save you a lot of money. If they look a little beat up on the end and stuff, you can still, because they're almost $100 each or like $80 each, whatever. But since it's unthreaded, it literally just pushes out. And you look at all that goo that come on my finger inside. I mean, it's just filled with goo in there. You look at that black. What on earth? What on earth? Look at that. Holy crap. And so all we're going to do is push these out, and then push that out, and then just literally just give it a really good cleaning. And then this old flat face O-ring comes out, and your new O-ring goes in, and it's flat. It's a flat washer. It's not a round O-ring. It's a specific one for here. And yeah, then you just pop that in, and with everything cleaned up, as long as this rubber seat looks fairly okay, you should be good to go. You should be good. The only reason I would replace this is if there's damage to that seat. But even then, I don't know. That's only when you take it apart anyhow. But yeah, so let's get this cleaned up and get our new packings in here, and they'll be ready for reassembly. All right, so these cleaned up really nice. The new packing is in there. That looks good. Nice and shiny inside. So them are good to go. The expansion valve came off right here. Came off really well. Let's take this up top and I'll show you. So this little nut goes to that little fitting. If you start to turn it off and it starts to get squeaky and tight, you can sacrifice this nut. Take a cutoff wheel on the grinder and cut this nut in half and finish getting it off to save the threads here. The problem lies, these nuts stay with the evaporator. You got one up here and then one down here. So if they start to get tight on the hose, I've had really good luck of taking the air hammer with a flat punch, and you just come in here, you hold the other one with the wrench, and then hit that with the air hammer. Brop, brop, brop. Hold flat, but a little bit over to the side, so if it vibrates, it'll try to vibrate, you know, turning loose. Brop, 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 and you'll eventually get it to go. Then take your wrench, give it a try. If it wants to get tight on you, you could always try drilling a little pinhole, a little tiny hole in that nut, and then squirting some solvent to soak in that nut to try to save it. If you ruin the threads in the nut, then pretty much you're just buying a core, because you're not gonna take it to a weld shop, because they're gonna charge you more to find a new nut, to cut this pipe, put the new nut on, and re-weld this pipe. It'll cost you more to repair it than to do that. But if you can use the air hammer, even worst case scenario, you had to drill a little tiny hole to get some solvent in there and just work the nut back and forth to get that solvent working around. Give it a night to soak overnight kind of deal. That would be fantastic. And so luckily, these all came off really good. So next step is pop these fan motors out, which I think I need Dad's help, because a lot of them have a little tiny nut up here and the screw from the bottom, and it's almost a two-person job. Otherwise, I just take a needle nose vice grip, lock in up here, and then zip down. Well, there we go. That might be why this particular fan was noisy. Half of this drum is missing, the squirrel cage. Half the squirrel cage is missing, and the other one that's there is coming apart. And so that might explain why that was that way. And these old ones, they could move a lot. The new ones, they're rigid. You can't move that engine. And these move a lot of air. They move tremendously more air. And they're so quiet. God, this is going to be like a dream compared to this noisy sucker. These are going to be a dream. I got lucky. The screws on this one come from the top. The last couple Dad and I did had a little machine screw coming from the bottom with a nut on top. So this one was a dream. It just, yeah. So we'll get that mounted in, and then after lunch, we'll start running hoses. This is the other fan off. Look how the wheel was rubbing the housing. It's almost a little difficult to turn. I pushed in on it some. So man, that's enough fan talk, but that's going to seem like a dream having them done. And then we'll start putting lines together. So here's our big line for our quick coupler we got there. And this one is for that other one. And then the receiver dryer is down here. And yeah, we'll start getting lines put in. All right, for flushing out the evaporator up top, we got some truck air brake conditioner and cleaner. And I got this siphon hose, so I can stick this wand up inside the one pipe. Then when you squeeze the trigger, it siphons up the product and starts rinsing it out, and you rinse it until you have clean alcohol or clean product coming out. And so that's been flushed. And then so let's get our expansion valve and our pipe work up there and work our way down, huh? So we got the lines coming up to the top. The big one, you got to take the protector cap off to fit through. as soon as you're through, you know, normally you blow this off a little better than I did. But when you come through, then put the cap back on so you're not knocking dirt in it. Same with these lines. Leave the caps on until you're ready to hook them up. So we got the receiver dryer here. So we're kind of giving it a test fit. So that's kind of how the shape I want my tubes. I'll change this one just slightly, but that's roughly how I want them. So now I can take it off or leave it sit out here and get our tar back on there. And I just crimp, insulate the tubes a little bit. It works a lot easier that way. It's one of them little things, like you don't have to do it. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's just easier for me to put that paper on here than it is when it's in place and you're trying to monkey around. But so I'll get this bolted into place, get the tar on, and then we'll get this top line installed, and then we're kind of buttoned up. That'll finish our air. Blower motors are in, and then we'll see what we can do. These rear bezels are all broken and rusted out. We're going to get rid of these lights altogether. I'm not putting lights back here. We just need a floodlight in each top corner is all we need for lighting. So these are broke, so we'll get these out. The screws are all rusted and broke off. I mean, he's still in there. Have to drill that one out. I have to drill that one out. And that one came out. So 2 came out, 2 didn't. We'll hopefully have better luck with this side, but probably not. The front plastic is good, so I'm reusing it, but we just got to get these cups off of there. And that, how you work on them fender lights is this cover. There's a screw here and then one on the opposite side. You can see it right there. Them 2 screws come off, this cover comes off, and then that's the access to your wiring and back of lights. Got to get rid of these lights, just get rid of them. Yeah. So we're getting there on the cab. We're getting there. And then hopefully later today, well then I still got to get that corner piece back in. But then I got to get, these bolts are rotted off. So I got to weld them out, get that tray out and put that in the press and get that all straightened up. The 40 series floor mat fit in there. So we're going to put a 40 series floor mat for a little more insulation, more noise suppression. When the new padding shows up, if this cutout is not already cut out, then I'm grinding this off and getting rid of this altogether and just have a nice solid sheet. Travis has the window tray up there that sits right here, and so I think we'll just get one of them from Shoop or whatever. Still got to get the monitor mount out of there, get all the hardware off the windows, get that window bolted back on. Man, there's still a lot of work. Well, there we go. Everything wrapped up there. Got it wrapped up here. The cardboard is just the end of our roll. Got our grommet in. So I got just a little tiny bit of touch up to do. And then let's start removing these lights, but I'm not making a video about removing lights. So for there, then we also got to free these up. These things are just rusted, absolutely solid. So we'll see what I can't find to free them up. Otherwise, everything looks good up here. And maybe we'll call this one a wrap for right now. And yeah, we'll see. The goal later today, move my toolbox, bring that front axle by the transmission case, get both of them washed up good, and then see, I don't know yet, do I attempt to put the engine in the frame rails or what? I'm not sure where to go yet, but that's the next step, is to get that stuff washed up and start getting ready for reassembly.